Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, or not welcome back. Well, if you're new, welcome to my channel, and if you've been here before, then welcome back. Also, I wanted to thank those of you that have subscribed to my channel and those of you that have watched my first video, because I was pretty much outside of my comfort zone making that video and actually creating this channel. So I appreciate the comments and the views and stuff like that. So thank you guys. I wanted to come on here and talk more about doing things later in life, specifically creating a family. When my husband and I met in our early 30s, I just turned 30 when I met my husband, and then we got married when I was 30. So we didn't know each other very long before we ended up getting married. It just felt right. I didn't want children right away because I thought having children made me old. And so we actually spent like the first 10, 15 years of our lives traveling and doing things like I learned to snowboard in my late 30s. We learned to kite surf. I was just doing a lot of things late in life that a lot of people might have already tried doing in their teens. So it wasn't until I was in my early 40s that we decided that we should have children. And a lot of it was like a should thing. It's like, oh my gosh, if we don't have children now, then we're just going to get older and we can't stop time. Most of the medical community in the United States does not have a lot of faith in women in their 40s having babies. But I know it can be done. But there was a lot of odds against me, not just with my own body, but with the medical community, constantly reminding me that I was just too old, which I think sucks, because I actually don't think you're too old to have a baby. There's a lot of people in their 40s that have babies. If their bodies are fit and healthy and they're eating the right foods and doing the right things, to keep their bodies healthy, I think it's very possible. But we're not told that from the medical community. We got pregnant once and miscarried. We met a couple that had a child already, and this couple was our age, and that child looked like them. The child looked like a combination of the mother and the father. And we later learned that that child wasn't actually a biological child. They had adopted that child from the foster system. This family is so perfect looking, and it gave my husband and I the confidence that we can have a family too, and biologically it doesn't have to come from us. So anyway, we went in the direction of adopting a child from the foster system. I won't go into too much detail about this, but when we got licensed to become foster parents, you're told through the education that you had to take, you aren't there to adopt. You're there to support the biological families to getting their child back to them, because the children have been taken away because the biological mother and or father couldn't take care of them for whatever reason, and you're there to help support the child until the parents can get back on their feet. And you don't get paid a whole lot of money. But they do give you something per month. It's so minimal to keep the child in your home. And so you have to have a bigger cause for wanting to be a foster parent. And our bigger cause was we wanted to adopt. And so we were told that the very last resort of a child's trajectory in the foster system is adoption. And they said that there is a lot of displaced kids that need adoptive families. And so we just had faith that there'd be a child that would show up that needed an adoptive family, but we weren't going to take away children from their biological families. After we got licensed to become foster parents, it was a bit nerve-wracking because all of a sudden I felt like I was going to lose my freedom. But I also knew that this was the right path that we were taking. What ended up happening was we weren't getting any placements. Like, nobody was calling us saying that there was a child that needed a home. And so we thought that, let's create the environment in our home similar to how when a couple is expecting a child, they will prepare their home by, decorating the child's room, the nursery, and buying a bunch of stuff to accommodate the child and stuff like that. we decided to do our own version of that by having a Christmas party, and we invited all our friends that had kids to come over because we wanted to fill our house with love and joy and family. And it worked because a month after we had that party, we got our first placement. It was a 1-year-old baby boy, and we had him for 6 months. We learned how to take care of a 1-year-old during that time, and then he went back to his biological family. And I have to say that our experience raising him for 6 months was amazing. First, we learned how hard it is for biological families to lose their children. They never mean to lose their children most of the time. This family definitely really wanted him back, and they knew they had made a mistake. There was some domestic violence or whatever in the house, and they did everything that they were told to do to, get back on their feet. And so they were able to get him back, which was great for them. Very confusing for us because at that time all we could think about was we wanted to adopt. It was difficult. Then our second placement was a 3-year-old boy, and he was actually on the track to be adopted. They were looking for an adoptive family. So they said there isn't going to be any visitation with biological family. All biological family has been asked if they wanted to adopt him, and there was nobody that wanted to adopt him, and so they're looking now for someone to adopt him. And he was currently living with his grandmother, and his grandmother was in her 60s, and she didn't want to raise him, although she loved him. She was also hoping to find a family that would also adopt her as grandma, because she wanted to continue being in this boy's life. And so we fell in love with her and the boy, and they fell in love with us as a couple. So the boy, who is now our son, Evan, came to live with us, and he was put onto the adoption track, and it was great. There were some hiccups because as soon as he went onto the adoption track, other biological families started just popping out of the woodwork, deciding that all of a sudden that they wanted him back. So of course the Department of Children's Services had to explore all those other options. It turned out that none of the family that was interested in taking him was fit to take him. Grandma thought that we were the best fit for him as well. Fast forward, long story short, we decided that, hey, we want to adopt a daughter. Our social worker called us and said, you'll never believe this, but I found a girl for you. She is 1-year-old, and she is on the adoption track. She lives in a foster home currently, and the foster family does not want to adopt her, and they're looking for an adoptive family, and they can't find any more family members, so they're looking for an adoptive family. And are we interested? And of course we're interested. Long story short, she is now our daughter, Leilani. Now we had our 2 kids that we've always wanted, Evan and Leilani. I never looked back. I had 0 regrets about not continuing on the pregnancy track. We miscarried once, and we could have tried again, but I thought about it a few times. I'm like, should we try again? But then after we had our daughter, we always said we wanted 2 kids. No, I would not change any of it for the world. And what's so awesome is that our son looks like my husband and our daughter looks like me. It wasn't until a few years later that we decided, hey, we want a third. We want someone that's kind of in between Evan and Leilani. We wanted someone that was kind of in between our son and our daughter in demeanor and in personality. It wasn't until a few months ago that we met our third, and we're still on that adoption track with him. So we can't show him on camera, can't really show pictures of him. If I do show pictures of him, you'll notice that his face is covered. But he's now living with us, and so really just overjoyed that we're able to have him come into our home. And he's been looking for permanency for a while too. So again, I'm doing things a little later than usual. I am now 52, and I've got a new 7-year-old son. If I actually gave birth to him, I would have given birth to him when I was 45. So I guess that's not too bad. But sometimes, like, I'll drop them off at school and I'll feel like, oh my gosh, like I am so much older than these other parents that drop off their 7-year-old kids at school. But something I got to deal with. I also feel the same way when I drop my daughter off at dance class. All the dance mothers kind of like just hang out, and I don't know, I feel like I don't belong. I don't know, like I talk about different things as them. But I don't know, sometimes I try to like meet them where they're at, but then I get bored of conversation. Maybe it has nothing to do with age. Maybe it's just more like lifestyle or interests and stuff like that. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's my story. Thanks again for listening. I hope this might have helped some of you either decide that if there's anything that you've ever wanted, that even though you think it's too late, and even though the whole world might think it's too late, as long as you're alive, as long as you're breathing, you can make it happen. Like, it's your life. You get to create your life. And what I'm starting to believe as I think about this more and more, and this is why I want to share my story, is I get to create my life the way I get to create my life. And there are people out there judging. There are people out there like, oh my God, I would never share that. But you know what? We all have skeletons in the closet. We all have things that we regret or that we're embarrassed about. You do you. I'm going to do me. And meaning that I'm going to have the life that I want no matter how old I am. And it took me a long time to get to this point. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good night.